What's up, guys? Welcome back to Firefighter Nation. We got a new show coming at you. Same people, just new name. The Revolutionaries on Firefighter Nation. We're back here with Preston Lyons from the Relentless Rejects and our guest, Corley Moore from Firehouse Vigilance. But before we get into the show, we just wanted to talk about our new show name. So I'm going to turn it over to Preston and let you guys know why we changed the name.
Yeah, the show was originally Tailboard Misfits, which is John Velez's OG brand and the one he still rides with today. But you know, he tipped the hat to me, knowing that I have my own brand, Relentless Rejects, and so we came together and we're like, let's change the name a little bit. And while we were brainstorming, I resonated so much with Chief Rhodes' 2024 speech when he talks about revolutionaries, and a big part that resonated with me was when he said, you know, do you want a revolution? You know, you cannot just be the person that violates policy because you don't agree with it. At a certain point, we have to become the decision makers. We have to be the ones that write policy. And so John and I came together because we have our own brands. We decided to rebrand as the Revolutionaries. And that's what we're going to do, is talk about culture, leadership, and how to just make the fire service better.
That's right. And I'm excited for it. And to go along straight with the name that we're going on, we have a great guest, Chief Corley Moore. Chief, thank you for coming on the show. Something that Preston and I like to do on the very beginning of our shows is just talk about family first. Our families, which you know, because we're all friends, are very important to us. And so just give a quick introduction and talk about your family for a minute.
Man, first of all, thanks for having me on for the first episode of the Revolutionaries. So it's pretty exciting. But absolutely, man. Family is the most important thing. I always, when I teach a class, at the beginning I say, this is who I am, and this is what I do. And what I am is a husband first, father second, grandfather now third, and then what I do, I'm a firefighter who writes books and hosts a podcast. And I absolutely love saying, don't confuse who you are with what you do, because this job will absolutely do it. But yeah, the family, of course, most people know Amanda, my wife. She's amazing, and she makes me look good. My kids, again, they make me look good. I'm so proud of our kids. And now my grandson, which I can just put up let me see. Yeah, there he is from Easter. Yeah, you can kind of see awesome. Hiding behind the clock, but
yeah.
Anyway, yeah, it's awesome, man. I'm over the moon. Yeah, I'm a blessed dude. Way luckier than I should be.
If you're anything like my parents, like now that you are a grandfather, that probably ranks above being a father, honestly. Like soon as my kids were born.
I've been told that my whole life. Like, you'll understand when you have a grandkid. I'm like, yeah, whatever. I had kids. I love my kids without, I'd die for my kids. And then you have a grandkid and you're like, holy smokes. Like,
yeah,
it changes everything. I try to explain to people, it's like a do-over, but not because you have regrets. It's a do-over with all the knowledge that you learn throughout your life with a brand new human. And it's just so powerful.
Yeah. Well, to kind of just get things rolling here, and like I said, we're all friends, and I think this conversation is going to go pretty well. But what you're kind of known for, if you will, is Firehouse Vigilance, the weekly scrap. Like Preston and I are both vigilantes. We're both huge followers of the show, and really just like what you represent. And so I'm sure we've talked about it before, but how was Firehouse Vigilance started, and like what it was, and how it's become, or like what it's become today?
Originally, it was started to try and make a difference in my own department. You know what I'm saying? And as you guys I know Preston and me have talked about it extensively, how frustrating it can be to try to make a difference in your own department, even though you're doing the right thing, you're passionate, what you're saying is correct, and you're trying to bring knowledge. But in your own department, it just goes over like the proverbial lead balloon. And that's exactly what my experience was. I was writing articles and trying to spread them around the department and things like that. And I actually started the Vigilant Creed, which was the original campaign, if you want to say social media campaign, where I got people to sign the creed, and what's the flag, the shortened version of it's hanging on the flag behind me. But long story short, they signed the creed, and then they would take pictures of it and then post it on social media that they joined. And I tried to get people to post pictures from all 50 states. And eventually we did. 50 states, 7 countries, like 3 continents or whatever. So it's spread everywhere. But when the original like 9 people at my department signed it and posted their pictures, there was this whole thing of, oh, he's starting a cult. He's starting his own department. He thinks he's better than everybody else, and all those kind of things. And it actually floored me. I was just like, what the hell is going on? I don't understand. So that was the original uh, I started a blog. I like to tell people I started a blog right when blogs were dying on the internet, and so I'm that business savvy basically. So that was the original birth of it.
What do you think of like it's grown obviously tremendously.
Sure.
Like you're having vigilante meetups at conferences and stuff like that. Like, did you ever think that it was going to become like what it is now?
No. In fact, when I started the Vigilant was what it was, the Vigilant Creed, because vigilante kind of has like this we're rule breakers. We take law into our own hands and all that kind of thing that kind of ties to it. And there's if you look at the history of vigilantism, there's actually like racism involved and things like that. So at first I kind of wanted to stay away from the term. But unfortunately, because Firehouse Vigilance, people just kept calling it the Vigilantes. So even though it was the Vigilant Creed, people would say the Vigilante Creed. And so eventually I started the group called the Vigilantes within the fire service, unrelated to anything else. And I thought there'd be like 20, maybe 30 people, honestly. Yeah. And then I was worried about it getting banned from Facebook just because, the way Oath Keepers did and things like that, because being associated with the wrong term, especially in the political climate, is a good way to get banned. So, but that's not what we stand for at all. It's not what it's about. It really is tied to Firehouse Vigilance. And the surprise to me was I thought there'd be 20 or 30 people who were like really into the scrap, and they just wanted to kind of see behind the scenes and be involved. I thought that's what it would be. And it has blown up into, I think there's over 720 members now and going strong. And meetups and the discussions in the Discord are phenomenal. It's a valuable resource if you're looking for like-minded souls, man. I love it.
Yeah, one of the things we really wanted to talk about with you today is just like making a real impact on the fire service, right? And I'll say like you for sure have made an impact on the fire service. And to tell, a short story, when I got hired at my department, we go around from station to station meeting guys, and one of the captains talked about the weekly scrap. And it was like my first exposure to like what I perceive to be the fire service now. And so like to say that, like you've made an impact, right? And that's just the scrap. Now you have the book of search out and you go to classes and you're teaching at all these conferences. So you've definitely made like a large impact that I know that you're determined to continue to make. And so in lieu of that, right? Like, and the term of the Revolutionaries, we really wanted to talk about like this anti-establishment movement that we see across the fire service, right? To not curse, like you see the banners like F the NFPA, and people are, talking smack about IFSA and stuff like that. And, we had a call to action from Chief Rhodes himself, right? Like if we have a problem, let's, instead of just talking about it, let's go out and fix it. And so this whole anti-establishment culture that you've seen moving, like, what are your thoughts on that? And like, where do we stand with it? And what should we be doing?
Oh, huge topic of conversation. So much to dig into. Where to start? The Revolutionaries and the call to action from Chief Rhodes was phenomenal. First of all, the dissonance factor. I guess that's where I'll start. I'm trying to figure out which to talk about first. But the dissonance factor, and it's a thing I talk about in some of my classes. And I learned the premise of it from Chief Dave McGrail, who's from Colorado. And I love him. I love taking his class. If you ever get a chance to, any of his classes, but when he teaches the one called Are You Into the Job? It's just a phenomenal class. But in that, he talks about the reality, the way things are. And that's just the way things are in your department. And you have to face reality. You can't make up your own reality. You have to live in reality. And it can be very frustrating the way things are. And most of us who want to make a change are frustrated with the way things are. And that's the way things are. And then way up here, there's the way things should be. So you got the way things are and the way things should be. And when you're plugged in and you're learning and you're reading and you're like the book of search and all these conferences and people who actually do it, teaching you this is what works, this is what doesn't. I can't believe this, and you know it. And then you want to share it. There's the way things should be and then the way things are. The difference between them is what I call the dissonance factor. And it's that dissonance, especially if you're a leader. If you have some influence in your organization, it's really easy to get caught in the trap of pointing at the dissonance, the difference between the two, and complaining about it and creating a negative energy that feeds on itself and is really destructive for your organization and destructive for what you're trying to get done because it's not effective. And so to finish Dave McGrail's point, there's the way things are, the way things should be. And what he focuses on in his class is in the middle, it's the way things can be. And that's where you should spend your energy. You should always be pushing for should, but you got to focus your energy on can and make those changes. And then you will actually get to where should can become can. And that's his whole thing. But it's that dissonance that a lot of, especially gifted leaders, and I say that term loosely, but gifted difference makers or people who have influence in an organization, they point at that difference, that dissonance factor, and it's easy to rally energy behind it because this is effed up, but that's not the way, and that negative energy can contract a crowd, but it's not getting anything done. So that's the first part of it, is the dissonance factor. And me and Preston have talked about it quite a bit, the negativity on social media and how easy it is. Well, Frank Viscuso, perfect point. If you go to Step Up and Lead and look at him on his Facebook, he'll post a thing that says, "What do leaders get wrong?" Generally speaking, he'll post a thing that says something like that. And there'll be like 600 comments on it and 2,000 likes. And then he'll post the next day, "What do leaders get right?" And there'll be like 6 comments, and like 200 likes. And it's just, and he'll say, and then he'll post a picture of both of them and the responses. And he'll say, "We got a lot of work to do."
That's something I'm looking for an answer to there, Chief. The negativity, how it's become like the sexy hot button topics on social media that's getting the engagement. And I think that is something that we are in danger of. Anybody that has a social media platform or has been victim of the death scroll, we are attracted to that negative energy. And some of us get so focused on creating content for likes and comments instead of that actual impact in the organization. And you can look at it even at the titles of our brands. I mean, just look at the 3 of us. You got the Rejects, you got the Misfits, and you got the Vigilantes, which you explained why. But then you also got, Smoothbore Cartel, Fools Chapters, Goons. Are we in danger of Into the Job firemen labeling themselves with these renegade brands to where we may not ever be invited into the room to become a decision maker?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think that people love identity and people love belonging to something. And when you're at a department, and the bulk of the American Fire Service is 3 stations or less, scattered across the country, and there's, 30, less than 100 people at the whole entire department. And when you're at a department and you love the job and you don't feel like you belong there, finding an identity, the Rejects. Hey, that's me. I'm a relentless. I am never going to give up, but my department rejects me. And now they have an identity to hang around their neck. But that doesn't, I think there's a danger of that if we stay focused on the negative. Absolutely. But I think that what happens is it's that oxygen so they can burn and burn bright with their passion. They get that oxygen, they can burn, they find like-minded souls in the Vigilantes, the Misfits, the Rejects, and they say, "I am not alone. Now I can make a difference in my department." But as long as we don't let the negativity become our brand, I think it's the identity that they want to belong to. But how am I trying to say this? Like you mentioned, it's easy to chase the algorithm and get into that loop of, I got to make this good content. I want people to like it. Why didn't they like this one? Ooh, they like this one. And but what happens is the algorithm doesn't care what you make. The algorithm just finds people who wants to see what you make. And so if you make stuff that's a middle finger to the man, you're just going to collect people that is middle finger to the man. And that's what your brand is going to be, because the algorithm doesn't care what you make. If no one wants to see it, no one's going to see it. And if it's worth seeing, people will want to see it. And if you make nothing but negative stuff, you will collect a crowd of negative people.
Sorry, it's getting a little choppy. So I kind of go back to like the whole title of this, right? We talk about the Revolutionaries, and you think about the history of the Revolutionaries and like what they were trying to do, right? They were trying to create change. They were going against a force that they did not agree with, right? They were rebellious. And I believe that a lot of the negativity that we do see is for a greater cause. But at the same time, like, I feel like, or maybe the question is like, do you feel like it's evolved into creating division?
I think what you're trying to say, like if you look at the American Revolution, right, we're basically deemed traitors to the British. But here on American soil, we are called patriots because we pushed back against an establishment that we deemed unfair and unjust for the population. And so you could be viewed almost in both different ways, especially when you embrace that title, revolutionaries. I think there needs to be a balance though in the firefighters or in the fire service, because we're not at that scale where we're at arms with the establishment. We want to make it better. So having a positive message, even if it doesn't get positive engagement, I know a lot of these topics are important. Like if there's, I don't even want to go down the rabbit hole, but if you've been on social media, there are certain pages that do a pretty good job at exposing some of the, safety culture or, topics like that, which are not necessarily important to backseat firefighters. We just want to do a great job. We want to serve people and we want to fight for that brotherhood.
No.
Can y'all hear me now?
Yeah, we got
You're
you.
back. You're back,
Okay.
brother.
Okay.
No, and that's a phenomenal point you made. One of the best points in that whole that instantly struck me when you said it was the American Revolution and the rebellion against England is that now we view ourselves as patriots, but history is written by the victors, and we did win that. So now we are the patriots. Instead of, if we'd have lost that, it would have been an insurrection that was crushed in a colony, and we'd still be part of the British Empire. Fast forward 250 years, who knows everything that would have occurred and when we eventually won our independence, just like many of the other colonies. But victory is written or history is written by the victors. And so, yeah, but this is not the same where we're going to war and grabbing our muskets and meeting on battlefields. It's much more nuanced than that. And it's almost like this insurgency fight, guerrilla warfare style in the trenches with, like you said, the backseat firefighter really doesn't care, but they just want to take care of things. So please, can we get there? Can we get there? And that's the soul of the essence of what we're fighting for.
Yeah. When I look at all this stuff and, you could see it everywhere. I always ask a question because is it, and Preston, you're going to be the perfect person to answer the question. I think it's extreme ownership, right? Where he's talking about don't just present problems, present solutions. And I feel like the majority of the stuff that we're doing and seeing, and, I've fallen victim to it as well, is we're just bringing problems, right? Mm-hmm. Except now it's for the world to see on social media. It's just we're not doing anything. So I always question, are we invested in just breaking down, or are we invested in building it back better? Right. And that's where I think we all need to get to. And I think that's the point we're trying to make, is just building this stuff better. And the call to action, keep going back to the call to action, to get involved, to make changes.
Extreme ownership has been my guiding principle, and everybody knows about Jocko and extreme ownership by now, so I don't have to explain it. But it makes things in your mind a lot easier when you're at the kitchen table and you say things like, I don't know why my department doesn't have a strong search culture. But then when you're like, okay, where does extreme ownership come in? What have I done to help bring search culture to my department? Have I bought the book of search for my ops chief and just put it on his desk and be like, here you go? Have I, encouraged Justin McWilliams to come into my department and just speak on the things that he's done? Have I put it into my own actions on the fire ground on, search techniques and tactics, and used firefighter rescue survey to educate the people in my firehouse? If I'm not doing that, then I need to shut up at the kitchen table. It's a harsh reality for all of us, because it's so easy for us to just banter at the kitchen table. But when you take extreme ownership and you're like, let me put these things into action first, and then I'll come back to bitching.
I do feel like there's a healthy line there between say healthy skepticism and then destructive cynicism. And so Chief, you've been at the impact game a lot longer than Preston and I. Where have you seen that line, go, where that line is, and how do you, not get too far one way or the other between that healthy skepticism of some of the stuff we're seeing, but also not getting too far into the destructive cynicism?
I think it's important. Like Preston made a very good point when he talked about, as an example, because this is part of the issue, is there's so many levels to what you can be talking about. Preston was very good when he was very specific about saying the search culture in my department. That's a specific problem. Once you get specific, and clarity is the first step. Clarity is always the first step. So once you have clarity of what the problem is, then you can start having that extreme ownership of well, what can I do about it? And once you have clarity and you start saying, what can I do about it? Then you can start being effective. And effectiveness, when a person can't be effective in their life or any aspect of their life, that's where the frustration comes from. That's where the frustration builds, is when they feel helpless. And that can, manifest itself all the way from anger all the way down to depression. And not clinical, I'm being broad stroking here, fireman speak. But long story short, once you've defined it, because a lot of times it's just, I don't like the culture of my department. Well, what does that mean? What does that mean? You haven't defined it. You have no clarity. So it's easy just to spit out negativity. And now you're just spinning your tires and wasting and creating negativity and wasting your effectiveness. And so at the other end of the spectrum, I probably the number one thing I hear is, man, my chief just doesn't get it. My chief, or, whatever level you want to talk about, my battalion chief, my district chief, my assistant chief, my fire chief, he just doesn't get it. He's not plugged in. He doesn't, and so again, sometimes there's nothing you can do about it at your level. So you just have to say, what can I be effective at? And that's where that clarity comes in. If you can't change your chief and he refuses to change, I mean, obviously there's a lot of roads you can take that you can try to build a relationship with him, try to build influence with him and things like that. But maybe you've done all those things and you're stuck with him for the next 6 to 7 years until he retires. Well, then now quit wasting energy on him then and start focusing on what you can control in your house. And if you're a firefighter and all you can control is the drills you're going to do on your own time after your duties are done, then so be it. Mm-hmm. But again, right to Preston's point, don't bitch about it. Focus, get clarity so you can be effective.
Yeah. I've noticed too, like whenever people, and, obviously being in the position that we're all in, talk to a bunch of different people and the issues that they're going through. And I've noticed that, like, even in my own life, that whenever we do focus just on our, like, what I consider like my circle of influence, which for me in my position would just be my crew. Right. And we build up that relationships with each other and we're into the job, we're training, all this stuff. And then they leave. And what do? Well, now they're going and they're doing the same thing for another crew, and they're getting that crew involved and they're doing the same things that we were doing on our crew. And then another person leaves, right? And so eventually, it just kind of branches out, and that's kind of the whole point of like what a lot of Preston and I talk about is like, that's how we affect change from the bottom, right?
Oh yeah.
It's just one person at a time.
Living it by your example so others can emulate, man. And emulation is that ultimate form of respect, man. It's just when someone takes what you've taught them and they emulate, man, that is the ultimate compliment you can have as a I don't want to say just leader, but as a impactful person in your organization.
Yeah, speaking on impact there, Chief, when you say, if your fire chief's not into it or something like that, but the firefighter grapevine goes up and down. So if you do a lot more chatting at the firehouse kitchen table, he may catch wind of that. And then if you try to actually develop a relationship and you want to bend his ear and talk about the things that you want to improve upon, is that chief going to actually listen to you when he knows that you've been just chirping and dogging him when he's not in the room or, anything like that? Or are you actually, like you said, like just putting in the work? If a fire chief sees that you're making an impact at the lower level and he's hearing from other people that, John Velez has taught his entire shift on how to do that. Nobody asked for it. He just taught it and made the shift better. When the fire chief catches wind of that and John Velez, he goes, "Hey chief, I'd love a minute of your time." He's going to give it to you. But if he knows that all you do is run your mouth and talk trash about him, he may not make time for you.
Yeah.
No, you're affecting yeah, go ahead.
I was just adding to making memes on social media. Like, right. That's kind of like, or like whenever you're just trash talking them, they're not going to give you time.
But you know what feels good is making a meme that mocks your chief or your organization or making a post. I mean, it feels good. I mean, I'm being honest. It feels good. It feels like you're doing something. You're not, but it feels like it because you get that oxytocin dump it's just,
we have confirmation bias on social media
without a doubt.
Yeah. I talk about like, not out loud, but like I've thought about this a lot because it does. Like it's kind of what we're talking about. Like it sells. And so it's as like digital validation over real world impact. And that's what I try to remind myself before I make any post. Right. And I don't make just a ton. A lot of it's just content from podcasts. But like if I am posting something that isn't someone on a screen talking, is this for validation from people that I don't know or don't work with? Or am I sitting here trying to make an impact? Is this for me or is it for them? That's what I always try to keep the mindset at.
No, and It's a phenomenal way of looking at it, because if you think about it, when you make a piece of content, why are you doing it? Why are you doing it? Obviously, you want to grow your brand, you want to grow your influence, you want to grow your impact. So that's part of it, and to do that, you need thumbs ups, and you need your numbers to grow. But if your only goal is growth, then again, it goes back to what I said. Uh, Preston's point about we live a confirmation bias. We live in an echo chamber, and if you post negative things, what am I? The only negative people get to see it, and then they like it, they share it, and they grow. Then you grow your negative, and it reinforces that confirmation bias. And then if you do post something positive, it's even worse than if you'd posted originally, because now your audience is like, "What is this? Get out of here!" And so that's part of it. The other part is as I squirrel brain out and forget my whole point, the confirmation bias, the echo chamber, the negativity. I don't remember. I had a great point, and it's poof. So it may come back to me. I go, oh, wait. But go ahead.
Well, there's one thing I want to address that we hear a lot, especially on the scrap. People will say things like, "You can't be a prophet in your own lands." We kind of started off this podcast with hearing about Firehouse Vigilance and its formation, and where you try to make an impact inside your own organization, and it doesn't happen. The next step for us to do is to go outside of our organization and find those like-minded souls, and we get charged off of that. But I try to remind people, do not forget about those people in your organization. Just because they don't jump on the train on day one doesn't mean that they're not going to jump on board with what you're doing. As long as you are consistent and your message is positive, more so positive, and you're making good impacts, and you're making you're more present in larger circles. And I try to explain that to people that start a new page or start a podcast, like our boy, Chris Dragon Scott with his podcast. And I'm like, dude, just be consistent, keep your message, and eventually you may end up on the stage of FDIC. Like, just keep that in your brain. As long as you're consistent and you're pushing a good message and people want to hear it, people are going to be on board, and hopefully people in your organization do that. But you cannot write people off along the way.
No, the mutts. Go ahead.
I would say I've been, and I'm sure we've all been there, but like, I try to remind myself of that often, right? Because at the end of the day, we talked about this at FDIC. If I get to the point where I'm frustrated and it's just me in the bay training, whatever, that's an easy one to come up. If it's just me down there, like, that's not good for the department or the community, right? Like, we have to find a way to bring those guys along with us. And I was to a point in my early career where I was ready for that. You didn't think the way I thought, you didn't train the way I wanted to, like, I was done with you. And was very convicted at a conference that I went to, and it just, had an epiphany right then and there. It's like, that's the goal from here on out, is we got to figure out a way to bring people along with us. Like, in my experiences, the people that legitimately are just so bitter and negative and don't want to do anything, they're few and far between, and they don't exist much. Those guys that are like seriously bitter, that don't want to train, that don't want to have anything to do with the department, they just show up, run calls, and go home. Like, those people rarely exist in my experiences.
No, the pure, like, worthless slug is a very small percentage. What you have is what Chief Scott Thompson calls is people that have been allowed to drift towards failure. And I love that definition more than anything else, because typically we don't hire turds. We don't hire slugs. We don't hire mutts. But somehow they went from the fired up person that we hired. And don't get me wrong, there are people that get through the hiring process and are completely lying and just want, the t-shirt, the recliner, and the start investing in a pension, or insert whatever the perks are.
Yeah.
We do have those that make it through, but they are the rare exception. Most of them are fired up people who wanted to make a difference, who wanted to be a firefighter, who wanted to ride a big red truck, and they wanted to kick in doors, save babies, kiss ladies, and drag hose through yards. That's what they wanted to do. And somehow along the way, they were allowed to drift by the being let down organizationally, being let down through life, and were allowed to drift towards what they become.
I think I think that that segues into this one topic I wanted to bring up to you, Chief, and you've been attached to it, even though you don't necessarily agree with the entire mantra, and that's F the mutts, because yours is mutts don't scrap, and
Right.
you and I have had conversation about basically the mutts aren't watching the weekly scrap, and some people took it and ran with it and called it F the mutts, but it builds on what we're talking about right now, like. If you spend more time and energy on that bottom 10%, call it 3% in Velez's department because he's from a solid department. But can you talk about why we should stop wasting our time and energy on those people, and then maybe a little bit about that mantra?
No, absolutely. First of all, FTM, it's in the fools. The official is for the men.
Yes.
And but a lot of people have taken that FTM and they've said F the mutts, and this is what makes me sad is I love dogs. Like I absolutely love. In fact, there's a Scrappy on my shirt that I'm wearing today, right?
Yeah.
And I don't get me wrong, I like pure breeds. I love boxers. I love giant schnauzers. I love big dogs. But I like mutts specifically. I like mixed breed dogs, especially a pit mix, a good pink nose pit mix, man. I absolutely love dogs. So it makes me so sad on a personal level that mutts have become, why couldn't they be slugs? Why couldn't it be something else? But, and then for my own show to be the mutts don't scrap. But, so that part of it bugs me on a personal level of, I love it. Don't get me wrong. I take great pride. In fact, every show ends with mutts don't scrap. And remember mutts don't scrap. But, so back to my point, and I've said this before, is, if the tones drop, like we're at the fire station tomorrow, we're all working in the same department, the Revolutionary Fire Department, and we're all on duty. And it's a 2-rig house, and there's 9 people in there, and the tones drop, and there's an explosion, a plane crash, whatever it is, and we all respond to it. It's hideous, bad, super dangerous, risk taking, and people lose their lives responding and trying to make rescues from our Revolutionary Fire Department house that day. The 9 guys that go with us, whether they were into the job, whether they were complacent, whether they were mutts, they're going with us and they're putting their lives at risk and they're trying. And that's the part that we got to understand is, one of the most sacred numbers in the fire service is 343. And those guys that responded that day, there is no way that was like the top 3% of the FDNY that win. It was a spectrum of everything, but they all answered the call and all went. So we can't sit and waste. Well, man, I'm just going in big giant circle, but the whole energy, we can't waste our energy saying you have to be where I'm at. It has to be inviting. And I'm not saying cajoling. I'm not saying we have to entice, but we can't just write them off like they don't matter, because they absolutely matter. They're going to be beside us. They're going to be beside us on that nasty as once in a lifetime call, putting their lives at risk with us. And we cannot alienate and say, F them.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's so many different ways that we've all heard, like to get those guys, involved and get them out training with us. And, like I said, we've heard a bunch of different ideas or, advice on this. Have you found anything personally that has worked time and time again for you on getting those people that, might be labeled a mutt just involved and like get them up to par?
First of all, is the definition of a mutt. What is a mutt? You know what I'm saying? Because you can. There's again, it's the levels. It's the clarity. You have to identify the clarity. If you have clarity on what the issue is why you're labeling that person a mutt in your mind. They may not even be a mutt at all. Again, they've been allowed to drift towards failure. So I've been asked, like there's a wildly obese firefighter way out of shape and has no business responding to a call where they need to be in physical condition, but they're going to do it. They're going to do it and they're going to go. And then you have a firefighter who's checked out, doesn't train, is mentally not in the game, but it probably does CrossFit 4 hours a day or whatever, And so you got these that's two separate issues completely. Now, I will say this, when the tones crawl, both are going to go. And one of them is going to be a detriment on that scene if things go sideways. One of them will be. That's just plain and simple. And the other one, both of them are a detriment because one's lack of preparation, one's and he could be way into the job and way prepared, but physical fitness matters. It matters in this job. I don't care who you are. It matters in this job. So that's two separate issues. And that's the biggest thing, is that the only thing I've found that's successful is you can't just take a paint roller and hit it with a giant roll. You have to build a relationship and say, hey, why do you think this is acceptable? Whether you're talking to this person and we're talking about physical fitness and the ability to do the job on a physical level, or why do you think this is acceptable, which is checked out, not plugged in? What? And you can't have that conversation with a stranger and have any sort of effect or any sort of impact. If you want to you can't change a person. You have to make them, only they can change. And if they don't want to change, then you're spinning your tires. So how do you get them to want to change? And that's ultimately what it comes down to. And that's the reason for the 9 L's. The reason the 9 L's was written was like, how do you make someone want to be at this bar that I think is the bar, And I'm not saying it like I'm the pinnacle of physical fitness or firefighting. That's not my point. But this was my standard. But my organizational standard was here. But I wanted people to want to be here. I can't force them to do it with my rank and rules and policies and procedures. They can, I always tell people, I can order, as the battalion chief, I can order someone to work out. I can be like, no, you're going to work out today. You're going to work out. And according to our contract, you're going to work out for 20 minutes, no matter what, you're going to work out. And they can get on a treadmill and they can be like, hey, check me out. I'm working out, chief. I'm doing exactly what you said. You ordered me to. I'm on it. And they can do that. And that 100%. But if I can connect with them, build a relationship, and that relationships word is just so overused because there's so much more to it. But if I can take care of them and prove to them that I care about them, and prove to them that I want what is best for them, and they understand that on a deeply personal level, then they will work out because they want to, and the word is please me, but that's not the point. Yeah. Just to empower that relationship. And it's powerful. It's powerful, but it's on a relationship based level. It's the only way I found to be effective.
Yeah. Building on that relationships topic, I speak about it in my Outlast the IDLH presentation. The reason why relationships are so important. My best friend that I've known since the military, he's basically the godfather for my daughter. We can talk on the phone for probably 2.5 hours about just insulting each other's mom
right.
for 2.5 hours, right? We're just throwing zingers left and right. But I know that dude will take a bat to somebody's head for me and my family.
Right on.
And that is the benefit of relationships. A complete stranger, you walk up and you say something about their mom, you're probably gonna be staring up at the ceiling.
Right.
And they may not come for you in your time of need. And that's the best way I can sum up to firefighters why relationships are important.
No, it's beautiful, man. It's beautiful. Yeah. Another big one, and I love that, man. That's phenomenal, is trust. And it's such, again, in the fire service, it's like words like culture, trust, relationship, leadership. These words are just used so much that it's almost like they've lost their value. But for trust and to really understand trust, it's just like you said. You tell someone, I've had this very same issue at times trying to talk to someone and say, man, people don't trust you. And when I've said that to them, I now realize they were like, what they heard was, I'm not a trustworthy person. Why am I not a trustworthy person? I've never lied to them. I've never cheated them. And now I understand they don't get what I'm saying. And your point that you made me think of is when you say, why do you trust your family? Like, why do you trust your wife? Why do you trust your kids? And it really is proximity and time together that over time, hopefully in your family, that builds that trust. And there's no way to replace that other than spending and investing time that I know of to build the word trust, which is separate from being trustworthy. And that's what I think a lot of times when a person in a position of authority hears, well, your people don't trust you. They're like, but I'm a trustworthy person. So they have no business not trusting me. I've never given them a reason not to trust me. But that's not, it's like, it almost needs its own word, and relationship doesn't quite cover it. Trust doesn't quite cover it. But it's not that you're a liar and a dirty person and no one trusts you. It's no one trusts you.
But it brings up a great point, Chief. It's just like, when we talk about making an impact, and I've talked about this before, I think with both of you guys, like at the end of the day, like I could be teaching conferences and classes and the big show itself. And at the end of the day, if I'm not making an impact at my fire department where I live and work at, like, I don't know that any of the other stuff matters to me. But like I feel like you can run into issues, right? Like, man, like I have buy-in from my crew, right? but like I'm having trouble getting buy-in from that crew, that crew, that crew. And you wonder why yourself, like sometimes I've wondered to myself, like, why is that a thing? And I think you just summed it up perfectly. Is like, I live with these guys. These guys know my heart. They know, we spend enough time together where they know what I'm thinking in certain situations. Like, we have that trust level, but I don't spend that time with the other crews. Right. And it just reinforced to me to really be intentional about my time when I do, or when I am around those other guys, when I am around those other crews, and be intentional about the relationships. And although I do agree, like, it's something that I talk about a lot, is building relationships with people. Like, it might be overused, but I don't know that we can stop using it, because it's
there's not a better term. If we come up with a better term, I'll start using it. Okay. 100%. But you just made me think of it. So I did. I snapped my fingers. You made me think of it, John, which is profit in your own land. And you tied it right back in beautifully, because I hate that term whenever someone says it, but it's true. You cannot be a prophet in your own land. And I know what they mean by it, but the caveat I always put on it is, if you're not influencing at your level in your own department. So in other words, if you're a company officer that travels the country and speaks, but your crew hates you, man, that there's a disconnect there that is not about profit in your own land. If you're a battalion chief like I am, and you travel the country and you speak, and your battalion can't stand you, and you're not effective at your battalion, what you're in charge of, what you're in control of, authoritarily, you know what I'm saying? Like your rank. If what you're teaching, like if what I'm teaching, the 9 L's and repercussions and the culture forge, those different classes that I teach and how to build relationships and how they work, if I don't actually have that in my own battalion back home, then that is where you really need to, like, that's the giant red flag that needs to be thrown in your own mind and from anybody listening to you. I'll stand by my people 100% all day long. They are amazing and make me look so good all the time. And as I'm on my way out the door, I will proudly say that my battalion, I think all of them would come on here and say the same thing, that I took care of them. And I almost hate using that term. I take care of them. It's like, sounds like it's, what I mean by that is they had the authority, the tools, and they were empowered to be awesome. And they did so. And I think they would come in and say that. So that's what I wanted to say about profit in your own land. If you're reviled in your own department at the level you're in charge of, then you're probably it shouldn't be teaching.
I think it's kind of probably a good segue into something else, and exactly what you said. And it's something that all three of us have walked through. And just like when we put ourselves out on social media, like there's a level of accountability we have to have for our own selves. And, this is why I'm very fortunate for the people I work around to be able to have relationships with them, and for them to call me out about, and hold me accountable. Like, hey, you put these things out to the world on social media or whatever, on podcast. It's time that you got to start cashing in on it, or you're not holding that standard that you're putting out there to the world. And so, like, social media is this, in my opinion, it is a great thing for the fire service. I know it can be used for negative intentions and stuff like that, like we've kind of already addressed, but it's a really good thing for the fire service, with the sharing of information and knowledge and everything like that. But like, has social media changed the way people look at themselves, especially as firemen, like within their own fire department?
Has it?
Yeah, like, has it changed the way that they view themselves? Like, do you think it is for the greater benefit of them?
I think the overall impact of social media is positive, period. Across the fire service, across the world, I really do. Now, the negative side of it is huge, and we still don't know everything. And there's a funny story real quick, and I love talking about it. And I heard it on Chris Williamson's podcast, Modern Wisdom, amazing podcast. If you don't listen to it, you should, but not the point. He talked about when the telephone first was invented, and they started popping up in these different towns. They had the community lines and stuff. And people said, this will never replace conversation. No one will ever talk over a machine, because you can't see a person's face, you can't read their emotions and things like that. So all they used the phone for at first, they would pick it up and be like, okay, I want 2 dozen eggs, and I'll see you at 3, and that was it. It was just information only, because that's all they saw the use of it for. Now you fast forward to my generation, and growing up teenager in the 1980s, 1990s, I would sit on the phone. It would be the cordless phone with the little pull out, that those existed. They weren't cellular, they were cordless, but yeah, no doubt. But I would sit on that and talk to a girl I liked for 2-3 hours in the evening, and I guarantee you, we were conveying emotion as far as what I said and how she reacted, even if we were just sitting there in silence for 30 minutes at a time. What are you thinking? I don't know. What are you thinking? And, but what I'm saying is we are in the infancy of social media and the internet. I mean, it's been around for a little bit, but we are still in the toddler stage of it and figuring out how to use. I mean, you guys are younger than me, and the ability to use emojis and memes to communicate now is something that if you just said people will use a picture, a pixelated picture to get emotions across, they use those almost more than words now. And it's just, we're still learning the impact. But so that's a long answer.
No.
Thanks for coming with me on that ride. But long story short, I think the overall impact is huge. Overall impact is huge.
Yeah. And Preston and I, we've talked about this, and I don't know. I have a big problem, and it's something that I try not to just throw out there all the time, but like, I have a problem with people posting stuff with no context, because it leads to what we've talked about, right? Like, I call it people posting things just for a hell yeah. You know what I mean? A like, a hell yeah, whatever. And I fear that, like, because of that people take things way out of context, right? And I'm sure we've all seen it, right? We've seen people say something on a podcast with zero context whatsoever, and someone grabbing a hold of it and running with it, right? To prove that point, I had a conversation, and I know that this wasn't his intentions, but Chief Ike's people before water, right? Under no circumstances was he using that, saying that, hey, we need to search. I mean, I say that, I don't really know, but we need to go search before we put a line in place, right? But someone made that argument to me, and I'm like, no, because you heard him say people before water. You had zero context of what he was saying.
I've heard
initiate a search before we plug.
Yeah, I heard speakers get on stage and reference that article.
Yeah,
and it was obvious from them hammering it that they hadn't read the article. They read the headline and then decided they were going to say, no, you can't read the headline. Like, at no point did he ever say that. So my question would be, is like, those of us that speak to the content creators out there, the people that are wanting to put themselves out there, like, how do we fill in that context on social media just to prevent this kind of things from happening? Preston, you jumping on it, or?
So if you look at anything that I post, I always try to put a 150 to 300 word caption underneath to make it inspiring, to make it motivational, to justify why I put a certain quote on there, or I have a reel of someone saying something, so they don't take it out of context. Here's the problem. Not just firefighters, but anybody on social media has a 7-second attention span for any type of content that you post out. If you put 2 paragraphs underneath a badass picture of a structure fire burning with a title of people before water, they're not going to read the caption, even if you put it there. Just like we're talking about Chief Ice's article. If you read the article, you know what he's talking about. The problem is the clickbait and attention span is just, it's going to be there no matter what. So we have to just make sure that we're trying to educate as many people as we can when we get to have real conversations.
And I'm a cynical person, and even though I'm super positive all the time, I'm a very cynical person. And I believe that and I hate to say this out loud almost, but the vast majority of people are just looking for something to bitch about. And so they're going to find it. They're going to find. In fact, even me, I'll catch myself doom scrolling, catch myself in the loop, and the negative stuff. Look, this guy gets knocked out. Oh yeah, I'm gonna, and it's just, and I'm like, oh wait, I just lost 30 minutes of my life. Quit that. I don't know why it's like that limbic hijack, that it just speaks to some part of your brain. And then again, I actually did a thing where I tried to train the algorithm to show me positive motivational stuff. And if you take one of my classes, you've seen the video I run in front of the class, and it's just social media clips. Because what I would do is I would save and collect anything inspirational and motivational that I really liked. And it's a bunch of like Andy Frisella, Jocko, Jordan Peterson, and different people's different clips. And some of them would like them or hate them, whoever they are. And but it did train the algorithm for a bit. And I'd get more of that stuff. So to the point, go ahead.
I will say, what's scary about the algorithm is you don't even have to like or comment on a post. If you look at it long enough, it thinks that you want it. So if you accidentally looked at the bikini volleyball reel a little bit longer than you should have, that's what you're going to start getting.
Hey, I tell you, I'm going to do this sometime as a part of one of my classes. Is I'm going to have everybody open up their Instagram, because this is the best one to do it on Instagram, and then hit the search button. Because when you hit the search button, the search bar pops up top, but then below the search button, it just it populates it with what it thinks you're going to look for, like what you like. And I'm going to be like, okay, let's compare, let's see it,
right. let's see
what you actually like.
Just make sure your spouse is not in the room.
Right.
A lot of people discontinuing their Instagram after that one.
So, I'm telling you, it's like it'll. If you
to get back to the root,
to
get back to the root of John's question, though, when he says is social media, changing the way we look at ourselves in the fire service, I think that's absolutely true on a positive, but at the same time negative. So if I follow any smoke diver page or any firefighter fitness page, plug in Hard Knock Sunday, Fit to Fight Fire, all these pages, I feel like I am inadequate. I feel like I am a liability. So yes, it motivates me to want to get in gear, motivates me to want to go train and get better at my skill set. But that journey does not take one day. It's going to take years for you to be able to do what those guys are doing on social media. And social media makes it look real good. I mean, not to knock smoke divers, but the content they push out, you're like, man, these dudes are savages. I am never going to be able to get to that level. And the negative side of it starts to create anxiety in you.
Sure.
You start to, when you get in your mask and you get in your gear and you're getting tired 3 minutes into what they were just posting on social media, you're like, oh man, I don't belong in the fire service. So I think there's a positive and a negative, but social media is truly impacting how we view ourselves in the fire service.
No, and I think there's, again, a lot to unpack there, because like Fit to Fight Fire, John Spear, amazing. I love the dude, and I know you do too. The and all the smoke diver type pages and the extreme fitness pages, just it's like anything in life. If it's not about you, it's you got to be very careful to not make it about you while keeping it about you. And so it's this dichotomy that exists in the fact that you need to be pushed, but it's just like keeping up with the Joneses on social media. If you're like, oh, look, they got a new house. Oh, they got a new Escalade. Oh, look at she just posted the new rings she got. If all you're ever doing is looking at what they got and comparing it to your life, man, that's an empty life. And that'll be empty. And the same thing applies to the fire service. If all you're ever looking at is other departments or other people, it's your journey. It's your journey. And this is the part that's dangerous, is it's not an excuse to say, well, I'm not there. So, you got to be pushed by yourself to want to be the best version of yourself. At the same time, you can't let it destroy your self-esteem and your ego, the good part of the ego that exists for a reason. And so that is that dichotomy that nothing is simple. Nothing's black and white. It's not evil. It's not good. It is, but it's not about you, but it's all about you. Mm-hmm. And so that it is tough, man. But I absolutely think the net positive is better. I do, because I think the net positive of humanity is better, and it's a reflection of humanity. That doesn't mean that all the bad doesn't exist.
Yeah, we all get to talk to a lot of people, and one of the things that I've found, sometimes disheartening with people is they represent themselves as something that they're not on social media, right? They care more about being seen doing the job rather than just doing the job well, or they care more about like their own ego and just, putting themselves out there like someone they're completely like not, man. Like, and that's where I appreciate people that are just honest with themselves, right? Like, Chief, you always talk about you work in suburban fire department. Preston, same thing. Like, there are people out there that, I don't know, like, I get it. It's cool. It's a cool label that try to talk about themselves like they're a ghetto fireman, but you look at their Instagram and they're responding to McMansion fires all day. It's just like, I don't know, man. Like, for me, like, where does it's easy to slide down that slippery slope. And something I always try to root myself in is just being authentic on social media. And so in the root of that, and this is probably a question for both of you, but like, how do you keep that core authenticity of yourself, but still pushing content for other people to follow?
Man, I'll tell you, Paul Combs captures the American Fire Service better than anybody. I love the man in his cartoons, but one of his famous, I mean, so many of them, but one of the ones is "We'll teach anything to be famous." And that exists there. people will do anything to be fire famous or any of that stuff. Honestly, if you ever see me teaching like how to push a basement fire class on tactics, then I've sold out completely, because I don't even know what a basement is.
Yeah.
So they don't exist here. But and that's the point, is you have to stay in your lane. You have to be who you are. And if not, I don't, and I see these, posts and these memes about vet your instructors, make sure they actually do what they're teaching and things like that. I don't know of any that are really successful that are teaching stuff they didn't do. That's one of the positives of social media, is if someone does, man, it gets called. I don't see this big problem of training cadres going out there and teaching stuff that they have no clue what they're talking about. Most every training cadre I've ever seen and gone and taken a class from, they've been pretty dialed in. Now I'm far from sampling everything that's out there. I'm not saying there's not some little group that's trying to get, I don't know that for 100%, but it's just, if they're successful and enough to be known, it's usually they've been vetted by, I hate to say vetted by social media, because it's almost the antithesis of what everybody bitches about. But the truth of the matter is, it would get called out if it wasn't. I would love somebody to say Mickey Farrell doesn't know what he's talking about when he does his tactics. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah.
Like, that is vetted by social media. He's amazing at what he talks about. And that's just first one that pops into my head. That's very well known for teaching tactics. I don't even know if I answered or got on the question right.
No, you did. I think that what I've seen in my experiences has been people that do find themselves in those positions where they're kind of teaching stuff and maybe they don't really have any business teaching it, is they don't last long.
Right.
So it might build here, but then they're gone before, you ever know it. And, unfortunately I've seen that, and it's just like, man, like, why do you do that to yourself? I don't know. I wouldn't want to put myself in that position.
I tell you what, I'm surprised we haven't brought it up, but we were all at FDIC not too long ago. And I had the great opportunity of standing in between Ray McCormick and Steve Robertson. And, Steve Robertson was blitzed, but at the same time, he was dropping knowledge bombs on me. And he was like, looking at me, he's like, hey, I know you. And I'm just going to tell you right now, everything I heard about you has been good so far. And he goes, I'm just going to tell you right now, make sure you stay in your lane. Stay in your lane. And he's like, there's too many people out there that aren't staying in their lane, and they're trying to make a profit or trying to make a name for themselves. And he pointed at him and Ray, and he's like, there's like 100 years of experience here between me and him. And he's like, do you think some of these cadres that are teaching how to stretch line, do you think they come to us and ask us about hose? They better, but they don't, and I was like, man, this dude is just dropping it right now. And, but then, it was also very valuable because he goes, we're at FDIC, we're at the district tap. And he's like, this place ain't going anywhere. FDIC ain't going anywhere. He's like, if I catch you at every single conference out on every road and trying to teach and trying to speak right now. And he's like, I know you got a daughter at home. If I see you out here and you're not with your family, I'm going to come up to you and I'm going to punch you in the face. And I just wanted to share that story, man, because it gets to that root of like, dude, we don't need to go 100 miles an hour out of the gate. We need to learn, we need to get the experience. And then maybe when we get some knowledge, we can share it.
No, man, without a doubt. And you and me have had this conversation. You said, how do you do what you do? And I've told you, I was like, man, if my kids weren't adults and I had no grandkids at the time, I said, there's no way I could do that. There's no freaking way without making them sacrifice, without sacrificing my relationships. And I wouldn't. And so there's no way I could do it. And we'll see how the grandkid affects things. We really will moving forward, because he's brand new and I'm excited. So he is going to impact it.
It's a healthy thing to talk about, because Preston and I both have young children and we both go to a lot of conferences. And what would you say, Chief? Like, you've walked through it, and what would you say? What's an okay and healthy amount of conferences to go to each year for a new I'm just saying, like, a new fireman
all of them are healthy.
Thank you.
All of them. No, I don't think it's a fair question. It really depends on that there's so much nuance to that. Your relationship with your wife, the age of your kids, so much that goes into it. What level are they at? And because this is not a fire service specific problem. There's been people sacrificing their families for their careers, going back ever since careers became a thing, and the cat's in the cradle and the silver spoon, I'm going to be like you, Dad. I'm going to be like you, and so I don't have a good answer for that as far as what's acceptable. But if you're, I don't have a
No, I think you
panacea.
answered it though. I think you answered it. Like it definitely depends on the relationship with your family, with your wife, how old your kids are. My number is going to be different from Preston's, and
Right.
it is. I feel like it is different. So,
Well, if
No,
you don't
and-
think
Go.
if you don't think I wasn't in trouble when I got back from FDIC, like you could be 100% present when you're home. But I made the mistake of, calling my wife out at FDIC and being like, "Oh, I'm having the best time. I've networked with all these people," and on the other end of the phone, she's washing dishes. There's a baby crying in the background. So you could have every best intention to be present once you are home, and you can tell them the whole spiel of like, "I'm out here getting better so I can be safe and come home to you," and all that. Like, if you dude, you just need to be real with your wife, be authentic, have a relationship. All these things that we're talking about, they also work in the firehouse or the family house as well.
And there's levels to this. There's so many levels to it. It's just like, when we get most I say house paid. We get paid a lot better than when I hired on now. So now firefighters can afford to be firefighter only. When I hired on, I laid tile. I would go work 24 hours. I'd get off work at 7 a.m. I'd be laying tile until 7 p.m. the next night, go home, eat dinner that my wife made, hang out with the kids for a couple hours, crash, go back on duty, do another 24, go lay tile. And in a 96-hour period, I'd be home 6 hours. I get to, even with all my traveling and everything right now, if my kids were young, I would actually have way more time with them now, even with my traveling, than I did slinging tile, trying to pay a mortgage and build a family and provide. And so there is levels to, like, everything has a cost. You want to set your family up for success. You want to set your kids up for success. And some of that takes trading your back for money, which takes your time. But that doesn't make you less of a dad because you spent less time with them. So it's all a trade-off. The big thing with the fire service is a lot of times it's going to a conference is investing in yourself. And that's a lot more fun than breaking your back for $10 an hour or insert whatever, at the time.
yeah,
Good tile work. Yeah. John, you got a bunch of side hustles going on. We're not side hustles, but you're a volunteer. You run the podcast. You're extremely busy right now.
yeah, and that I always like to try and get insight from people that have been there and done that. And I think we've all talked about this. Like, my wife and I have a very open communicating relationship, and she's not scared to call me out when I've been gone too much, but she stays at home. So she knows that there's a trade-off there between, me being gone to make some money to get by or whatever the case may be, and being home with the kids. And so I will say this though, like this 48.96, like I feel like I still work the same amount of overtime. I still work, as much time at my volunteer department. I feel like I'm home a lot more, which has been awesome. Like, just before this, I was at the softball field with my kid playing catch and hitting the ball to her and stuff. Like that never happened on a 24/48. So I don't know. It's been awesome.
That's cool.
Yeah.
No, I've never heard anybody who went from a different schedule to it that complained about it.
So, no way.
Don't celebrate it too much though, because I'm pushing 24/72 in my department.
That's the drum I'm going to beat. It's the 24/72.
Nice.
So,
well, Chief, as we're coming up, or we're a little past an hour, and I know I want to acknowledge the fact that you're going to be retiring soon.
Oh yeah.
So, there's people that follow the podcast, there's people that follow all our platforms. You said that everyone's invited to your retirement.
100%.
Absolutely. So I'll give you. I want to say congratulations to that. Was it 29 years?
28 and whatever. February was 28. So spare change.
28.
June 1.
28 and some change.
Yeah, 28 and some change. So
okay, well, congratulations. But I do want to ask you, what are your plans for? Who's that? Is that John? What are your plans for once you step away from the fire department? What are you going to be working on?
Man, I've told a lot of people that I'm not done with the fire service. I am only done with the MFD, being an employed there. And so that's where I'm hanging it up. And I have a lot of, if people know me, they know I have a brain that doesn't really it's just chaos. It's chaos is what I call it. And I have so much stuff that I want to work on. So there's like 2 or 3 books I want to write that I have not been able to focus my attention on. There's this whole project that I was talking to you guys about before we went on the air that I'm getting a pivot towards. It's all fire service related. In fact, I'm so excited about it. When I'm ready to unveil it, I can't wait to share it. The vigilantes kind of know a little bit about it. Yeah. And but I've never been able, it's been like brewing in my head. I remember talking to Ray McCormick at Pensacola about it like 3 years ago, like telling him, explaining it to him. He's like, "Oh, that's a great idea. That's a great idea, Corley." And no, I was excited. And so to actually have the time to be able to pivot towards that and put in there what I think it could be. And I think it'll have a huge impact on the fire service. I really do. And so things like that, so much, that I want to get to. So we'll see. I'm not trying to be ambiguous. It's just, Frank Lieb, I was at FDIC talking to him in the speaker room, and we were talking about my retirement specifically. And he says, cause he just retired last year. And he says, when you're on duty and doing everything, you're always a homing pigeon because you got to get back to get on duty. You got to get back. And the number of times I've landed at midnight, and Amanda picks me up and I crash and then go on duty to not have the homing pigeon, I don't know. It's been almost 3 decades of doing this. So we'll see.
Well, Chief, like we started this podcast off, like I know, like you've made a large impact in the fire service. I don't think anyone can say you haven't. And I think Preston and I both know that we're going to be along for the ride to see what you do once retirement comes. And an early congratulations to you.
Thank you.
Is there anything else that you want to say to anybody listening before we check out?
June 14th, Oklahoma City. We don't have a venue yet, but we're doing a retirement party, and everybody's invited. So June 14th, I don't know where we're doing it at. It's just other than Oklahoma City metro area in some way, shape, or form. Other than that, no, firehousevigilance.com. Check it out. I'm pretty proud of it. I am the luckiest person in the fire service, and I say it all the time because I get to hang out with you two. I get to hang out with tonight. I'm going to talk to Anthony Avillo on the scrap for a few hours about tactics and strategies in his new book. And the cool part is I had dinner with him not too long ago, and it blows my mind that I get to do that because I'm just a battalion chief from more suburbia, Oklahoma, and then the best part of the whole thing, and the reason I say I'm the luckiest person in the world, is because I get to do that, and I get to call him a friend. I get to call you guys friends, and then people come up and say thanks for what you do, and that to me is the part is like blows my mind. So again, thanks for having me on here. I've enjoyed the conversation. I don't know if I added any coherence to it, but I definitely rambled.
No, go ahead, Preston. Sorry.
No, I mean, I'm not going to toot your horn any more than we have already done, Chief. Like I've given you so much praise on and offline, but I mean the praise is well deserved, and keep doing what you're doing. Even though there's some people that say when you retire you should step away from the fire service completely. I know you wanted to respond to that at the Firefighter Nation. Maybe we'll address that on another podcast in the near future.
I think that there definitely is there's a level of truth to it. There is a level of truth to it, depending on what you're talking about. There is.
Yeah.
And there is, but we can make it another topic sometime.
Yeah, absolutely.
Make it another topic. All right, guys. Hey, just remember the name of the podcast, The Revolutionaries, is all based on a call to action to get involved to make a real impact on the fire service. So do your due diligence, learn the job, have some patience, and get involved in where it actually matters. Other than that, we'll see you next month.